It's been a disastrous Tuesday for Donald Trump so far. He woke up and his favorite pollster, Rasmussen, posted the following: "Holy crap, the new Epstein polling is brutal. Stand by. Some of the worst approval Donald Trump ever had in this pro-Trump pollster. -4 in the Rasmussen poll. It's almost down to the April lows. This is following the passage of the disastrous budget bill. And according to Rasmussen, the independent Trump approval is now -19. And it should be noted, in my opinion, that Rasmussen poll always inflates Donald Trump's approval. And they always have Donald Trump in a net positive when people have him negative. So the fact that Rasmussen has him down is saying something. Now, this also comes as we got inflation numbers, and inflation is now surging. U.S. inflation accelerated last month to the highest levels since February. Heather Long, economist, says the following: tariffs are starting to raise prices. You know how people were saying, when is the tariff data going to be in the overall inflation data? We're not really seeing it. Yes, we were seeing it, by the way, and we are definitely seeing it right now for the last month. U.S. inflation rose 0.3% in June. The annual rate climbed to 2.7%. That's up from 2.3% in April and 2.4% in May. Food, energy, and rent are all playing a big role in the increase in June, and core inflation, which excludes food and energy, rose 2.9% year over year in June. Very bad numbers right there, and all exceeded what the estimates were going to be. And if you look in the areas where the price spikes are happening in June, durable goods, linens, oranges, olives, cookware, audio equipment, major appliances, coffee, sports equipment, and toys. And I think we will expect that to get significantly higher as well, given Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs against the world, bringing them back to either where they were or higher than when Donald Trump declared Liberation Day, which I always called Liquidation Day. But Donald Trump is posting away this morning, lying like always. He goes, "Consumer prices low. Bring down the Fed rate now." Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. No, consumer prices are not low. And if you get rid of the Fed, and if you precipitously dropped the interest rates by about 3 points, you are going to cause a massive, massive depression. Donald Trump then posts, Fed should cut rates by 3 points. Very low inflation. $1 trillion a year would be saved. Folks, I've said this before. Donald Trump's bankrupted almost every business he ran. And they weren't all that complex of businesses. Daddy gave him money. He would have these real estate ventures or build casinos or put his name to various products, and they would get bankrupt and they would go bust. And then he would do it again and they would go bankrupt. He has no clue what he's talking about. He doesn't even know what a tariff is. Put it that way. He doesn't know what a tariff is. And here he's saying, drop interest rates 3 points and everything will get better. No, you will create a massive depression by doing that. As Carl Quintanilla points out, one can see the outlines of tariff-induced inflation that will become more prominent in the July to October period. Meaning, even though we're seeing now inflation start to surge, it's just going to keep on getting worse now that the economy has had the ability to, I guess, digest Trump's disastrous trade war against the world. Also hat tip to Joe Bruselas right there as well. Oh, and then Donald Trump, right after the disastrous inflation news comes out, he then threatens Adam Schiff, Senator Schiff, with criminal prosecution. Here's what Donald Trump says and lies about. He goes, I've always suspected Shifty Adam Schiff was a scam artist, and now I learn that Fannie Mae's Financial Crime Division have concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. I always knew Adam Schiff was a crook. The fraud began with the refinance of his Maryland property on February 6, 2009, and continued through multiple transactions until the Maryland property was correctly designated as a second home on October 13, 2020. Mortgage fraud is very serious, and crooked Adam Schiff, now a senator, needs to be brought to justice. By the way, you see how Donald Trump puts his loyalists into positions, whether it's the IRS, whether it's controlling Fannie and Freddie, whether it's controlling any of the Treasury, and then they go through your files, and if you're an enemy, they make up stuff about you to find pretextual ways to prosecute you. That's what they're going to do with the IRS, and that's what they're doing here. They go through and they specifically target their political enemies with audits. They lie and they manipulate the data, and then they go after people. That's Gestapo tactics right there. Oh, and by the way, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, he says he hasn't even looked at the inflation data yet. Why even bother? So what he said, I haven't looked at the inflation number, but I wouldn't put too much emphasis on one inflation number. That's what the regime is going with. We haven't even looked at the numbers yet, and I wouldn't even put an emphasis in that number, even if I did look at it. Do you see how disingenuous, how crooked, how criminal, how fraudulent this regime is? I mean, I'm just laying out what they said. I haven't looked at the numbers. Again, I don't care what political party you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. You haven't looked at the inflation numbers. You're the Treasury Secretary. And then you go, but if I did look at it, I wouldn't care. Isn't that what your whole job is? That's my point. This isn't a Democrat, Republican, Independent thing. This is a Trump fraud thing leading our country into bankruptcy. Democratic Congress member Ted Lieu held a press conference with other Democrats earlier today, and he was calling out Attorney General Pam Bondi for hiding the goods on Jeffrey Epstein. Play this clip.
Epstein, of Jeffrey Epstein's client list. In fact, she said that Jeffrey Epstein's client list is, quote, sitting on my desk right now. Where is that client list? What is Attorney General Pam Bondi hiding? She needs to release the Epstein files as soon as possible. I talked about the Epstein files under the Biden administration. I'm talking about it under the Trump administration. This is a case of the powerful protecting the powerful. We need to have those files released. I also note that the Epstein files that have already been released show that Trump is all over the files. He's in multiple pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. There's multiple videos of Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. There are plane logs of Trump on Epstein's plane. There are statements by Trump about Epstein. There are court pleadings of alleged victims of Epstein naming Trump. So we need to have these Epstein files released.
On the other hand, you had MAGA Republican Congress member Greg Murphy giving an interview on News Nation where he admits tariffs are hurting his district. Small businesses are suffering. But he says, you know what? This is what daddies need to do to their kids. This is parenting, he says. And his constituents and Americans need that tough medicine. And their suffering is that tough medicine that they deserve. Here's what he says. He also lies and says that they're focusing on reducing the deficit when they're about to add trillions and trillions of debt. But here, play this clip.
Talking a lot about the consumer and all of this, and that's critical. But you and I have spoken before about businesses and different sectors that have been impacted by the threat of tariffs, having to reset essentially how they do business. What are you hearing from those in your district about how they're dealing with all of this, small and mid-sized businesses?
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's not been hard for some, because I've met with several. I've gone in their shops, sat down with their, with their clerks or with their owners in small businesses and sat with them and talked with them. I'm not going to say it's been easy. The sad thing is, or the challenging thing is, you have to look at it macroeconomically. You have to look at where we are hurtling with our debt, and with our trade deficit. We have to do something. We have gotten drunk essentially on low, cheap price goods from foreign countries, many of whom have been taking advantage of our lenient import and export policies that we've done in the past. We have to do this. This is parenting in a way that we have to take some really tough medicine to make sure that we have economic viability as we move forward as a nation.
Oh, and then Donald Trump just has his malignant narcissistic posts like this. I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. How pathetic is that? At the same time, we learned that more U.S. farms have already filed for bankruptcy in the first 3 months of 2025 than in all of 2024. So just in the 3 months of 2025, more bankruptcies than all of 2024 when Biden was in office. Democratic Senator Durbin had something to say about Epstein. Let's play the clip.
Do you now want to see the files released?
Absolutely. Leader Jeffries is right. Either they misled the American people with this conspiracy theory for years, or they're covering it up now. I joined with Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland during the appropriations process last week. We offered an amendment together. The amendment said that they should preserve the evidence of the Epstein investigation and release it to the American people. It passed by a voice vote. The Republicans didn't want a record vote on the issue, but it really gets to the bottom line. Let's let the American people see the truth.
And then finally, unclear why anybody would even go and visit the United States right now with this fascist regime in control. Here's a story from The Guardian. Irish tourist jailed by ICE for months after overstaying U.S. visit by 3 days. Nobody is safe. For roughly 100 days, Thomas says he faced harsh detention conditions despite agreeing to deportation. 35-year-old tech worker and his father and a father of 3 from Ireland came to West Virginia to visit his girlfriend last fall. It was one of many trips he had taken to the U.S., and he was authorized to travel under a visa waiver program that allows tourists to stay in the country for 90 days. He planned to return to Ireland in December, but was briefly unable to fly due to a health issue. His medical records show he was only 3 days overdue to leave the U.S. when an encounter with police landed him in Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody. From there, what should have been a minor incident became a nightmarish ordeal. He was detained by ICE in 3 different facilities, ultimately spending roughly 100 days behind bars with little understanding of why he was being held or when he'd get out. That's the United States for you. Anybody? Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.